Hello there, and welcome to the Ideas and Beers podcast. You're here with your host, Ryan, and I'm one of the co-founders of Ideas and Beers. Also, we are with Emma Price from Empire 92. We'll go into that in a second, but we are actually currently sitting in her living room. She is in a onesie, so we're having a very chilled out podcast here. We're just setting the tone for you all. So, well, it is a Sunday after all, so we wouldn't really want us to be sitting in like a boring little cold cafe or something like that. So we've chosen a living room instead to bring this podcast to you, and there'll be a photo going up later on social media, which will be basically us two sitting in a living room. So yeah, first of all, thank you for listening to the Ideas and Beers podcast. There was an intro that was sent out yesterday, just describing a little bit about what the podcast is going to be about and what Ideas and Beers is. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that, I will go through it again briefly. So Ideas and Beers is a community which was set up back in March 2019 with the mission of helping people to kind of make connections and to work with one another in a safe environment, and just basically rely on a support network of people, which they might not find if they in their family and their friends and things like that. So if they've got an idea or a problem or an issue, there's a safe network of people to kind of come to and just have an informal beer and a chat with. About whatever they've got going on. So the Ideas and Beers podcast, the main kind of mission that we've got with this is to interview as many people as possible from all sorts of walks of life, just to really drill down on their kind of mindset, the things that they've done, the messages they've got to spread, and to spread good information, good stories, and give you all of that kind of information. So yesterday, like I said, was the intro. We've got Emma here for the first official podcast, and we're going to be having two guys who have got their own property business coming on in the next few days as well. So keep an eye out for that. Now, let's get into the podcast, shall we? Okay, so I'm sitting here with Emma, like I said, and Emma is the founder of Empire 92. Now, Empire 92 is a ladies' winter sports brand, and we'll go into that in a second, okay? But I'm just going to give you a bit of an insight into Emma, okay? So, Emma, first of all, what would you say is the one thing that sets your soul on fire? We always start with a big question, by the way, on the Ideas and Beers podcast. It's called Big Q. So, Emma?
Hi, Ryan. Welcome to my living room. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone, also. So, I think the thing that sets my soul on fire, and I've sort of come to realise this in the last couple of years, is novelty and adventure. So, nothing sort of fulfills me more than, and this is a really strange concept to like my family, I'm a bit of a black sheep in my family, but new things in terms of not material things or stuff, but new experiences, like especially if they're active as well, like active experiences, like diving into pools and unfamiliar places, or climbing up rocks and trees and all of that sort of thing. So I was like your typical tomboy when I was growing up. So you'd always find me like falling over rocks and falling out of trees and breaking my arm, and I'm just that sort of person. So I think in one word, it would probably be adventures.
Cool. Awesome. Love that. I completely get what you're saying there about the active adventures. I think that's very, very important to get out there in nature and to really to do some crazy stuff, some crazy shit, because I think it's it's something like, you know me personally as well, like I love that kind of stuff. So I think that's awesome. So thank you for answering the big question.
You're welcome.
Just want to go into one of your passions, actually. So in the description I mentioned about Emma, so she's got, like I said, her winter sports or ladies winter sports clothing brand, but you are a bit of a snowboarder, to say the least, aren't you?
I am.
You are. When was the first time you went snowboarding?
The first time I went snowboarding, it's actually quite a funny story, because considering it's such a huge part of my life now, it wasn't always a huge part of my life, because I only started when I was 22. So I was quite a late starter when skiing and snowboarding is concerned. And it all happened because I sort of followed the same path as a lot of people do I went to school, went to college, went to university, and I went into an office. And it took maybe like 18 months of office life to sort of break me. And I felt like I was missing something, and I felt like I needed to be out there exploring, seeing the world. And it was the wrong time of year to sort of get a summer job.
Right, yeah.
So everyone was like, what about a winter season? And I was like, what the hell is a winter season? Bearing in mind, I'd never been to the mountains apart from the Brecon Beacons and our back door. But I'd never been to the mountains. I didn't even like the cold, if I'm honest with you. I didn't particularly like going outside in winter. So, but it was kind of a seed that got planted in me a couple of months before. And I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to apply for a winter season and see what happens. And like, obviously it changed my life. It changed my life in such a magical way. And I actually learned how to ski first. So I skied first, and I sort of, like, I enjoyed it because it was physical and it was outside and it was in the mountains and stuff, and I really enjoyed that. But I don't know, I was like, I still don't get why people spend so much money on this. Like, you know, they do spend a lot of money on winter holidays from the UK. And then one day, there was a big group of us that worked together, and one of the girls there, who happened to have the same size feet as me, really wanted to put on my skis because she was a snowboarder. And I was like, all right, let's do a swap for the afternoon. I was like, I'll just like try snowboarding.
Wing it.
Yeah, just wing it. And I put on the boots. And honestly, I was like, oh my God, this is me. Like, I just had like this sort of excitement in my stomach. Like, I was just like, my eyes must have been like way alert. And then I put on the board. And one of the reasons I really liked it was because it was a lot easier to stop than on skis. So on skis, you're like taught to like cross, you know, put your skis into like a triangle, or pizza and chips, as they say.
Yeah.
Pizza. But I was thrown into the deep end of my first ski lesson, and basically I went too fast, and I ended up like crashing into someone, and standard accident prone. But yeah, when I put on a snowboard, I just felt like really naturally good at it. Just felt naturally taken by it, and I could stop because I just dug in my heels, and I was good on surprisingly my balance was good. So then after that I got like an official lesson, and the instructor was like, oh my God, I've never ever met someone like that's picked it up this quickly. He was like, you don't need to be on the baby slope, you need to be up the lifts. And went up the lifts on my first go. So that's like it was sort of all of the combination of like the excitement, the feeling that I was good at it, the praise as well, because obviously that plays a lot into like your mentality. But then it just, in my head, I was like, I can do this, I'm good at this, I love this, and that was it. That was just where it all started.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'd be interested actually if any of the listeners are into snowboarding, very passionate about snowboarding. I'd really like to hear why other people got into it as well. Actually, so if you're listening to this and you love snowboarding, can you please tell us why? And feel free to get in touch with Emma as well, because I think your stories like that are awesome, to be honest. To find the different things that people find that they're passionate about, just discovering those passions. And I think, like you've said, but it's happened by chance almost, isn't it? You just kind of put yourself out there to discover something new, and then you've totally changed your life really, and your outlook on life. I love that.
Pretty much like every decision I have made since then has revolved around snowboarding. Like that's how much of a life change it was for me.
Just from swapping boots with somebody.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
and I love that, because that is life in its essence, really, isn't it? It's just like one little thing that you do, and all of a sudden it snowballs. Now, pun intended. It snowballs into something which can really define you as a person. Yeah. Just trying that one, just putting yourself out there to try something new, and then really just letting it take you.
Ryan,
yes.
Why don't you share your first experience of snowboarding?
Okay, right. So, well, we went to Tamworth, which is up near Birmingham, to the Emma. She convinced me to come and try it. So I've tried skiing before, not the best at skiing, but I thought, okay, we'll give snowboarding a try. I mean, I wasn't terrible. I nearly took out a few kids on the way down, but they were all fine in the end, so it's okay. It was never that bad. It didn't break anything. and I think I managed to do a couple of turns and a few stops and stuff. So
Which for a first time on a snowboard is incredible.
I feel like Emma's lying about this.
No, I'm
but...
not. I need some backing for this. Like actually doing a turn, like from your front side to your back side on a snowboard on your first ever go on a snowboard. That's an achievement.
We'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
But me personally, I think my ass was hurting at the end of that. So, I mean, yeah, we'll agree to disagree on that. Where have you been snowboarding to altogether then? What countries?
I've been to a few now. So I've been to... my first season was in Italy. So I've skied quite a few resorts in Italy. Mostly in the Susa Valley, but a little bit of the Aosta Valley as well. I've skied France, so Les Deux Alpes, Montgenèvre, Chevalier, that sort of place. I've done Austria a couple of times. And then I've also done down in the southern hemisphere, New Zealand as well.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Yeah, and it was incredible. I love New Zealand. Like, if we talk about New Zealand, we'll be here all night.
How long were you in New Zealand for?
I was in New Zealand for a year.
A year. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And you were living with... if you'll remind me, who were you living with when you were out there? What was the...
In New Zealand?
In New Zealand, yeah.
Well, I lived around the place quite a lot, and I lived in a van at some point, which is like a rite of passage for living in New Zealand. Not in the winter though; it's a bit chilly for the winter, but in the summer, definitely live in a van in New Zealand. That should be like everybody's bucket list item.
Yeah, that does
100%.
sound very nice.
It was incredible. You would love New Zealand.
Yeah, it's do you know what? I want to travel to New Zealand just because that's where they filmed Lord of the Rings.
Oh my gosh, that was like one of the biggest like drivers for me to go out there as well.
Yeah, I just want to go. I just want to be in Bilbo Baggins's little cottage.
Oh my god, do you know though, they're empty. They are
Don't tell me
empty.
this.
I'm sorry, but
No, don't-
it's still magical. Like
Don't,
Hobbiton is still
no. I mean,
magical.
don't tell me this because that I will
The
move
pub
in.
is full.
I will move in.
Yeah, but I was surprised. Like, so even when they were filming, they said that all of the little Hobbit houses were empty, completely empty, and they did all of the inside filming in a studio, which maybe to be expected, but it was like magical, like butterflies and like it's literally like walking into like a fairy tale. But it's super busy, like lots of tourists.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But just to like another little point there as well, so they've got the Green Dragon pub.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And people didn't realise, so I just saw these like costumes hanging around, and obviously me being me, I just picked them up and put them on, and I made a friend with a couple. And the guy's name was Billy, and he was like, I'm gonna join you, I'm gonna put on things as well. And I was like, let's take off our shoes, and we started walking around like actual hobbits, and his girlfriend was there like looking at us like, oh my god, like what? Who are you people?
What
like,
is going on?
Yeah, put the costumes down. But it was good.
What is going on?
Yes.
Alright, where's the best place you've been? Not skiing, just in general. What's the best kind of place you've travelled to? Would you say it's New Zealand?
Oh my god, what a difficult question. I appreciate the different things in different places. Like, I haven't got a best because everywhere I've been has been special in its own way. However, I think I would like to retire to New Zealand, but I've not seen all the other countries yet, so I've got to, it's not a fair judgment yet.
Okay.
Got to tick them all off.
You've got to work your way around. That's
Yeah.
fair enough. All right. Okay. So what would you say is your best memory from travelling? Not best place or anything, like just best memory, like one of the the things which has stood out the most.
Yeah, so it actually was when I was in a van, when I was living in a van, and it's the time where I felt most at peace, and the time where I felt really sort of happy, just content from like the inside out. I barely had any possessions. Like, it was nearly at the end of my time in New Zealand, so like my money was a bit short, and I was living like in like a hippie commune, okay, next to the beach. So you literally, in front of you had the beach and like all the waves, and we had a resident seal as well that used to come and say hello.
A resident seal.
I love
that.
He came up and said hello every now and again. And then over to the left, so this was in a place called Kaikoura in New Zealand. Over to the left, you had like the mountains, like the glorious like mountains, and it had been like raining and stuff, so like the top was all snow capped, bearing in mind it was summertime, so it was just like weird but amazing. And then you had like all this farmland and forestry like all around you, so it was literally just, like, the most peaceful, like, natural place. And every night, like, all of us guys that were living in the vans would just, like, get together around the fire. We'd all bring, like, bits of vegetable or whatever, and we'd just stick it all in this pan and cook it all together, and we'd sit around and eat together. And it was just, like, so simple, and like, you have, like, the glorious, like, night sky out there as well. But it was really, it sort of made me realise that the best things in life really are, like, the simple things.
You just, I was just about to say that then. As soon as you said that, there's a few things you mentioned. You said about, you had minimal possessions. You had kind of people around you in a small kind of community, living out of a van, and, appreciating, like you said, they're not now actually cooking the food yourselves and things like that in the community. And I think what you've said there is really, really important, because it's like we're all so reliant, especially in Western culture. I think we're so reliant on material possessions, and we're marketed to buy all like different material possessions and things like that. And essentially, a lot of the time, stuff that we don't need, which doesn't kind of serve a purpose for us. But I think what you've touched on there is really interesting, because it's like, the key. I think the key thing to happiness there, or one of the most memorable moments for you, is the most simple, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Actually, just having that community around you, having nature around you and things like that. And I know from my own experience as well, I was trying to say things that I was grateful for a couple of days ago, and I thought, well, you've got family, you've got friends, the things that are going on. But I mean, the kind of the key things that came up for me in terms of what I was grateful for was, being down the beach and, walking onto the beach with the sun, glaring in my face, the waves crashing, the wind, blowing in my face, just the kind of the scent, the smell, the smell, well, I say the smell of fresh air, but, the breathing in the fresh air. And, that was, for me, it was a simple moment, but nothing else mattered in that moment. And I think it's very, very interesting when you strip back all of these possessions. I think you really do start to understand then, what happiness is and how to achieve it. So I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so going off a little bit on a tangent from mountains and well, no, actually, it's not going off on a tangent. But I was going to ask you how long ago did you set up your business, first of all?
So I set up my business it's kind of a strange story. So after my year in New Zealand, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was sort of coming home back up to the north, and I went to Italy again to work in my friend's bar, just as like a floor manager for, like, on the side of the lake. It was beautiful, Lake Garda, absolutely stunning place. I'd actually lived there before. I went back because it felt familiar to me. It felt, I had something to go back to. But while I was there, I realised, like, I just felt like I was working 6 days a week for somebody else. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the bar manager. We're really good friends and everything. But a part of me felt really unfulfilled. A part of me felt like I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. And I'd actually started a bit of a journey a couple of months previously, like a purpose journey, like trying to find my purpose. I knew I had a purpose, but I just hadn't figured it out yet. And I was thinking in my head, it's going to be something that sort of fulfills me on every level. So it fulfills my need for adventure, my need for creativity, my need to be in control, because I am that type of person as well. And yeah, it was going to sort of tick all of my boxes. And one day I just had like a really, really bad day at work. I think I just didn't cope very well on that particular day, but it was probably the best thing to happen to me, because I was like, I'm done. I'm starting my business. And I already had it in my head. So my business is functional, like, winter wear for snowboarders and skiers, female snowboarders and skiers. And the reason is, no matter where you go skiing or snowboarding, like Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, the kit for women, like the actual functionality, the actual quality of the stuff that's available for women is like so subpar. Like, it's so bad compared to like the quality of the men's stuff. And I it wasn't just me, so I asked around like the people that I knew, and I was like, is it just me, or do I just don't want to wear that stuff, but I do want to go snowboarding. So that's like a big dilemma. And it wasn't just me. So I was like, right, I'm just going to fix that problem. And what it meant was that I could start like drawing, because I really enjoy like that side of things, like drawing and coming up with ideas and sketching and solving a problem for like women as well, and women that are like adventurous, and it's like removing the barriers for women getting into like adventures and snow sports. And what, like, if I can take away one of those barriers, do you know what I mean? There might be a few, it might be mindset, etc. But if I can take away one, then that's one less thing for them to worry about. So the focus was all about getting a sustainable company, but also like really high quality materials and functionality in the actual clothing itself. So the idea technically started in the summer of 2020. So it was 2018 when I started thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff actually arrived, so I gave myself no time at all. I literally just took messy action. Like, don't know if you ever heard of that, but like I am such a person for like trying to run before I can walk, and that's exactly what I did. So the stuff arrived on the 22nd of December 2018. I didn't have a clue how to market anything. I didn't have a clue how to sell online. I literally built a website and spent so much time on YouTube trying to figure stuff out, and really I enclosed myself in like all winter as well, just to test it and see if it would work. And like the feedback was amazing, and it went really, really well for that winter. And then obviously by like spring, I was like, oh, right, now what? Now what do I do? I've got a seasonal business. But I did, I made the decision at the end of that winter. So this was like, March 2019, that I wanted to grow it, and I wanted to go at it even harder this winter, which winter's, so 2019, 2020. So I'm like literally in the infancy of the business still. It's very young. But I think the foundation on which I've built it is sort of a strong one based on like some core values.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does indeed. What you said about core values there. So, you mean core values that are personal to you, or?
I just think like when you start a business, you have to think like bigger than yourself. Like I could go down the route of I just want to make as much money as possible in a short amount of time as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And like get rich quick and whatever, but like I want to fix these problems, and I want to remove these barriers, and I also want to be a company that's sort of good for the environment, because that's like such an important issue, which is why I teamed up with Tree Generation, which you are also aware of.
Mm-hmm.
So that's on Instagram if you guys want to follow Tree Generation. So we go out and plant some trees for every purchase, but it's that sort of thing. I think that it automatically sets you apart from other people, and it automatically sets your business apart. Like, and that's before you even get into like your personal intrinsic values.
Mm-hmm.
Hope that makes sense.
No, that bit makes perfect sense. I mean, one of the things I wanted to bring up, and I did bring this up in the introduction, I believe, actually, into the introduction of the podcast. But it's a guy called Simon Sinek, and he's got a book called Start With Why, which was a really, really influential book for me. And it resonated with me personally, because I had always chased businesses that I'd just kind of fallen into almost, or I thought, there's an opportunity here, this is great, and we kind of went from there. But then a few months or a few weeks down the line, all of a sudden I've realized, I don't actually enjoy this business as much as I thought, or I don't love this business. Like, I feel like I'm in a rut, and I kept on getting into these ruts from the different businesses I was getting involved in. And, and the business suffers for it as well. You suffer for it. And I think what it came down to when I read that book, when I read that book, was, he talks about really starting with the core purpose behind the business, behind the brand. What's your core purpose for that business? And he obviously you can't see this if you're listening, but if you were to imagine a big circle with 2 layers inside, so you'd have an outer circle, another inner circle, and then one little circle in the center. You'd have what on the outside, you'd have how on the second tier, and then you'd have why in the center. Most businesses, or most people in general, this doesn't translate to business, this can be about anything. You kind of start with the what. What am I going to do? What am I going to sell? And then you go further in, you think, okay, well, how am I going to sell something? You know, how am I going to do this? But everybody, or not everybody, but I'd say 90% or 95% of businesses and a lot of individuals as well in their own lives, they really forget to dig down to that kind of core, that why, that main purpose behind what they're planning on doing. And that can be relevant if you're going for a job as well. Why do I want this job? What's my core values, essentially? And I think if you're setting up a business, or if you're going into some sort of a job, I think you should really write down your core values, figure out what they are, and then tailor whatever it is you're about to do to your core values. Because if it doesn't resonate with your core values, if you're only doing it for financial gain, for example, like you were talking about, you're really going to run out of passion and run out of enthusiasm quite early on. I mean, with yourself, I mean, what was the kind of, what was the why behind your business?
Yeah, so this actually fits in really well with one of my coping methods, actually, because I am an overthinker. I sometimes overthink. I shouldn't claim that as my identity, but I sometimes overthink. And something I read that really, really, really resonated with me was like, when people overthink and they become down and way down with their own thoughts, they're basically self-obsessed. They are obsessed with themselves. And I was like, holy shit, I am obsessed with myself. And then the next bit in the book was, your life is not about you. Your life is not about you. And the more I live by that, and the more I try to add value to other people's lives, the more like my life feels fulfilled. So the big why, I think, with Empire 92 is, like I said before, removing those barriers like for women. So it might start off with giving them the kit they need to go out and ski or snowboard or learn to snowboard. But what it could evolve into is, the sky's the limit. It could evolve into far greater things. Like, one of the things I would love to do, and I'm hoping to do, is, for example, introduce skiing and snowboarding to young women, like maybe school-age women, because I didn't have that opportunity when I was younger, and I would be an Olympic snowboarder by now if I did. So, somehow removing those barriers as well. So, like, all of a sudden, like, there's no financial barriers, there's no, like, barriers for kit, there's no and it just giving sort of women the opportunity to have an adventure.
Yeah
I
love that.
On me. I just said it and I was like, yes, that's my why.
I was going to say, that's the vision, isn't it? That's the vision you've got for it. And I think that's just as important as knowing why you started, is knowing where you're going, having that vision.
Like an Empire 92 indoor sports like arena in Wales. I want to be the first one. I think it's already in planning, but I mean, I might try and get sponsorships in there. I don't know.
I love it. I think you should do it. I think you should
for sure.
Definitely chase that.
Yeah.
I mean, with the business, what would you say is like, what's been a big challenge for you, in the business, in terms of, because a lot of entrepreneurs, like, if you're working on the business yourself, they experience a lot of loneliness in the sense of you're kind of trapped within your own mind, and you've got to talk to somebody about stuff. You've got to try and have a network of people to actually discuss things with. What would you say is the biggest barrier with that?
100%. So there was quite a few challenges actually, and you just touched upon one of them, which is like which I really, really struggled with, and that was loneliness. So I said that I started that winter, and essentially I started it from my bedroom in my parents' house. And I've already mentioned as well, I'm a bit of a black sheep in my family anyway. So to bounce ideas off people that don't necessarily see your vision and don't necessarily they love you and they support you, but they also want to protect you. And sometimes you have to take risks, and sometimes you need people around you that sort of believe in you, but also encourage you and also hold you accountable for certain things, and have experience in business. None of my family or friends really, well, now I've got friends with businesses, but beforehand I didn't have that exposure to people who have businesses, like really successful businesses that, or whatever the case may be. I didn't have those people around me at the time. And it's something which I found in Ideas and Beers, and not just for my business stuff, but a lot for my personal life, my accountability, Ryan actually stopped me drinking coffee, and although I hated him at the time, I'm actually really grateful now because I have so much more energy and I don't get any like dips or cravings or anything. I was such a coffee addict. So it's stuff
You're
like
welcome.
that. Yeah, thank you. It's stuff like that as well, I think, where like a community of people is really, really important. And although you will still have challenges, like I've had loads of challenges with like manufacturers and like logistical stuff and like, you know, big decisions and things going wrong and timings and all like really practical things, and doing it all by yourself as well. That's like something that I am trying to step away from, because I am, like I said, I like the control and everything, but it also exhausts me. So something I'm working on to improve the business. But yeah, I think, you know, you will still have these challenges, but to have people around you that support you is like priceless.
Yeah. That's well, like you touched upon it perfectly there. I mean, that's the key thing for me with Ideas and Beers, and you know, and what we're about really is having that community to you know, to connect people and to actually just get people talking really. And if you, like you said, about having a network of people about who know stuff about business, you know, that's really what I believe in and, you know, want to create, because like I've said in the intro, you know, it was something that I would have loved to have had, you know, starting out initially, but it's something that I've realized, you know, we all need now, and not just because of business. You know, this is like, you know, I want to emphasize this, is about anything, you know, like whatever kind of challenges you're going through in life, you know, if you've got a community of people around you who get it and get you, you know, you're going to do so much better in terms of, you know, getting through it and actually progressing with your life, you know. And well,
it's just like, if you think about our Ideas and Beers group in Swansea, like not everyone has a business, and in fact a lot of them come along just because it's an open, welcome environment where you can literally voice your fears or, you know, sound some ideas, and you know, it's relaxed, it's informal, but it means a lot to people to have that around them. So yeah.
Well, I mean, with your business now as well, going back to that, I mean, what would you say is like well, if you were to speak to somebody now who was in your shoes 2 years ago, starting out, what would you give in terms of advice? Like, what would you say?
Well, although I make fun of it, I do think messy action is better than no action. So messy action, like that's what I like to call, you know, stop waiting for the perfect moment and just start taking action, like messy action. It doesn't have to be perfect. Seek out your community. So seek out the people, whether they are online or in your hometown or whatever. Seek out those people and make a commitment to yourself for your self-development, like your continual self-development, because like I don't like the term self-help, because I feel like if you need help, you're in some sort of trouble. I like the term self-development because you're already established, you're already enough, but you are constantly going towards your potential, and therefore you're always sort of improving and growing, and also taking other people on that journey with you as well.
Okay, yeah, no, I really like that actually. I've never thought about it like that when you said about the self-help thing, and about how it's almost like you're not capable of. Well, not so much that you're not capable of doing
like it's
it,
what you shout when you're drowning. Help! Like you're not drowning. You're fine.
Yeah.
In fact, you're like more than fine. But you know, you can learn more because you have like this amazing brain inside of your skull that's like literally infinite, and you can absorb so much stuff. And I think a continual commitment to your self-development is really key.
Awesome, cool. I love that. Okay, I think you've touched upon it actually. I was going to say to you, I mean, what would you say is the most important tool you can have to get you through life? You know, I think you have touched upon this a couple of times, but you know,
I think it's actually your mindset.
Your mindset, yeah.
Yeah, so your mindset, like, there's this amazing businesswoman from America called Marie Forleo, right? And she's coined the phrase, everything is figure-outable.
Yeah.
Like, everything is figure-outable. And if you have that belief, like, you can figure anything out, you can deal with anything that comes towards you. That's just one belief, but it like covers everything in life. Then you will progress, because, and again, like I said, just remember that your life is not about you, it's about what you do for other people. And like the gain from that is actually, you know, your own fulfillment. in your own development. So definitely a mindset, like focus on your mindset. And I think you know perfectly about mindset. Like,
yeah.
It's like your bread and butter.
That is my bread and butter. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
What's
Okay.
yours then?
What's my main important tool?
Yeah.
Positivity for me. I think positivity. So I found that mindset, or a growth mindset, is kind of dissected into about 7 different segments. I won't go into them all today, but if anybody wants to drop us an email, another podcast, but one of those kind of pillars, if you like, the 7 pillars of mindset, what I call them, is one of them's positivity. So positivity for me has always been the one which I hold in highest regard. Don't get me wrong, all of the other pillars, like in terms of resilience and things like that, they're all just as important, but I think you've got to remain positive in order to be more resilient, to be, to actually get yourself, you can be resilient to get you through a situation, but you've also got to be positive about it, and positive to think, what, no, actually, I've got a bit of optimism for this. I think this is going to get better. I think this is going to, really, like if you're talking in terms of, let's say, you're not doing well in your job, not so much doing well, but the business you're in or you're working in, it's looking as though it's going to close. Let's say it's just not earning enough money. Let's say you worked for Woolworths, a couple of years back, and you kind of hear the war stories and you think, oh, actually, hold on, this is not looking good for us, and that's something it's going to be daunting, especially if you're reliant on that income. And I think, in that situation, you could just go, oh, do you know what, actually, it's, I'm not going to worry about it and this and that. But, I think if you remain positive in that situation, I think, do you know what, whatever happens, I'm actually I'm going to make it through this situation and come out on the other side.
Everything's figure-outable.
It is, yeah. I mean, and I've used this so many times, like positivity, and funny enough, one of my business partners from one of the companies I had, Better Gentleman, I remember when we were shutting down the business. I think we had to run it for about a year and a half. When we were shutting it down, I was really excited, and I was like, "Oh, this is great," because this is it's a really good learning experience, and it's I'm excited for what the next thing is now because of the lessons I'm taking for this. And he was just looking at me stupid. He was like, "Why is it? How can you be so happy or excited in this kind of moment?" And I was like, "Well, you've got to be, I can't look at this as a failure. I don't look at anything as a failure. I don't look at anything as a setback. I literally just look at everything that's happened to me in my life, or anything that I've done, which has turned out bad, as a lesson. Because as soon as you call it a failure, or a mistake, or a setback, you instantly disempower yourself, if that's even a word. But you take away the power to really correct things and to actually just take the lessons from it and learn from it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a podcast with Joe Rogan and Guy Ritchie, and he talks about that a little bit as well. It's essentially it's taking ownership of your life, and where he gets that from is a book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Really, really, really good book. I highly recommend that. I listened to it on Audible because it's about 12 hours long, but it is an amazing listen. And that's essentially what it's about, is taking ownership of your life, taking ownership of your thoughts, and even the stuff that you don't think has anything to do with you. I mean, we're quick to blame other people, but when we blame other people for something that we may have had a slight bit of something to do with, or impact on, we disempower ourselves from the lesson that we could learn in that situation. And I think it's important to actually take those lessons, no matter how small, because you will, it's part of a growth mindset. It is part of a growth mindset. So that for me is, there's a long explanation.
It was,
but yeah.
It's funny though that you should say with positivity, because I think I am predisposed to positivity, but I like to think of myself as sunny but realistic, and I think that comes across in the way I dress as well, because I always have a beanie hat on with a pair of sunglasses on top. And if you live in Swansea and it's guaranteed to rain 6 out of 7 days a week, everyone's like, why have you got sunglasses on? And I'm like, because the sun might come out.
And you know what? You've touched upon that, and I'm in shorts currently,
Yeah.
and we are in February. Yeah, we're in February, and I'm in shorts. But I know what you're saying. I can't.
Realistic with a sunny disposition.
Yeah, as soon as we get out to January in the Christmas period, I'm like, you know what, this shorts are coming out now. Even if I freeze a little bit, just because I'm a summer guy. I don't like winter. I'm not a fan of it. But ooh, excuse me, just dying. Yeah, okay. So I'm just to end this now. I've got one more question. This is something we're going to be doing with all of the podcasts, and I just want to find out a little bit about, a little bit about what you might want to see happen in the world. Okay, so I want you to think of an idea, or an existing idea you might already have that that you're happy to share, that you'd like to see happen in the world. What would you like to see happen in the world, and why?
Am I allowed to steal someone else's idea?
Oof, as long as it's, I don't know about GDPR and, data protection here. As long as they're happy for you to share their idea, then you go right ahead.
I just think, I think Scandinavian countries are actually starting to do it. It seemed a bit sci-fi-ish, like, when it first started coming out in the news. But it's about, like, roads that can power electric cars when you drive on them. So you literally drive on the road and it will like charge the car. So the road, I don't know how this works. Like I'm not, but
I like that,
yeah, I really love it. And also on a similar sort of environmentally friendly stance, like rather than, so with the new roads, because we've got so much like plastic and whatnot, creating new roads actually out of plastic. I don't know like the pros and cons, but I just love the idea of like, reusing and sort of having a better solution than what we've currently got now for our plastic waste.
I haven't seen the first one. I know what you're talking about with the second one, with the with actually laying the roads and the instead of putting tarmac down, you're putting kind of a recycled plastic
and why
down.
aren't our roads like solar powered? Like that would work as well, would it not?
It's too expensive.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean I have seen.
Is it more expensive than like a dying planet? I'm not sure.
That is a good point. That is a
like,
really good
how
point.
Much did like all of the floods, all of the storms, all of like, and this is very topical right now as well,
yes,
because
it is.
We've had so many floods, but how much is that costing?
Yeah, that is a very, very good point.
Like at which point does the scale like tip?
Yeah, and that's the do you know what? I think that's the unfortunate thing based on. In the kind of environment we live in, where GDP, gross domestic product, is the way that you kind of value a country, it's quite unfortunate because the profits of a company or the valuation of a company, it's the more we spend on things like you said, flood defenses or things like that. Essentially, it takes it away from
and like nuclear weapons. Like, do you know what I mean? There's quite a bit trillion going into that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Come on, you Scandies, like sort the planet out for us.
Yeah, I think you've touched upon a really good point there. Actually, I'd like to, if any of you've got any information on two of the ideas that Emma's just mentioned there, how that could work, and if you've got any kind of ideas yourself about what's what you think needs to happen in the world and why you think it should happen, we'd love to hear from you. It'd be really great to hear from you. You can get in touch with us through, like I said, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and we've got the website as well. So the website's www.ideasbeers.co, Instagram, ideasbeers.co, Twitter, Ideas and Beers, and Facebook, Ideas and Beers. Nice and simple. And Emma, would you like to give your socials for the business?
Yeah, Empire92.
Yes.
Empire92.com.
Cool.
Empire92.
Boom. And it's Empire with two M's.
It is.
Just
like
want to
two
say that.
mountain peaks.
Like two mountain peaks. Yeah, if you see on the website, it will make a lot of sense. And I didn't notice this first, but when she pointed it out, I was like, oh, that's genius. I love it. So, well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
That's not a problem. Well, thank you for having me in the living room as well. It's very homely. It's very nice.
You're
and
welcome.
It's quite warm.
Yes, it is. In your shorts.
In my shorts, yeah. Right, cheers, guys. Thank you very much. And stay tuned for the next podcast, which will be in a couple of days, like I said. And that will be with two gentlemen who have a property company. So we'll tell you more about that on the day. Thank you very much and have a good night. Bye.